So I'll just move on to the production and publication implications. I'll get through this and then we'll have time for more questions. So it's quite helpful to think about this basic process as what happens when you are rerunning searches and managing the yield in a living systematic review. So when you run the searches and screen, one of two things can happen. You can find something or you can find nothing. If you find something, you can either integrate it into the review now or integrate it later. But at some point, you'll need to do the data extraction, risk of bias and synthesis, and then update the review in some way. So this is what's happening every month or however frequently you're running the searches. So what that means for authors is that, and the author team, is that there needs to be a lot of planning at the outset for an ongoing contribution. As many of you will know, it's hard enough just to write a systematic review or a Cochrane review, let alone maintain it. So we're talking about frequent small commitments from authors, and in my own experience, needs very clear project management to make sure that the work is distributed between the team each month. LSRs offer an opportunity for potentially bigger teams. So you don't have to have a large team to do a living systematic review, but you can imagine that you can start to get a network of collaborators who each contribute a small amount to the review over time. And we would expect that the author team would evolve. So it becomes important to think about how we maintain that institutional memory and that consistent approach to undertaking the review when you've got different authors involved. Some tricky questions around academic credits, because the existing authors, but also new authors, will need appropriate acknowledgement via new citations, but by the same token, we don't want too many new citations and having any citation of the review being spread across a lot of different individual citations. And also funding can be a bit of an issue because funding tends to be time limited or project limited. So teams may need to be creative if they are going to seek funding to be able to allow an ongoing commitment. So this is some of the enablers to living systematic reviews. These are, I should point out, these are helpful for all reviews. They are not specific to living systematic reviews, but there are a number of things that can happen in the production of the review where we can use technology or we can use bigger teams and crowds to start to streamline processes and make the whole thing more feasible. So things like online tools and platforms for authoring, some of you would be familiar with the examples we've listed. We're starting to see more machine learning happening in Cochrane and elsewhere to get through some of the screening. Structured data and linked data can make it much more straightforward and automatic to get results into, or get results from the study yield. And we're also seeing some interesting new ideas around citizen science and participation of crowd, bringing people in for small, discrete tasks within reviews as a way to, as I say, increase the speed with which a review is published and reduce the workload. Publishing living systematic reviews is a particular challenge, as I mentioned. So the issue is that every systematic review and update of a review is a new article. Each article has a unique identifier, which is the DOI. Every DOI is a new citation. Every new citation is a new entry in PubMed. So if we were to republish a review every month, we're going to get an awful lot of citations attached to that review. So that's going to be confusing for readers, more work for authors, publishers and peer reviewers, and then creates a low number of citations per article, which is not always that helpful for authors in the way that academic incentives work. So some of the things that people are thinking about with publishing is what we're seeing in other areas is publishing elsewhere. So people are sometimes publishing on websites rather than in journals, publishing and updating their results. Some groups are publishing less frequently, so they're not trying to update every month, every 3 months. And there are some journals that do allow post-publication revisions to articles. But one idea, and I guess what we're pursuing within Cochrane, is thinking about splitting the process from the publication. So it's the idea of telling the reader what's happening versus what's new. So I borrowed this slide from Harriet McElhose, but this is the idea of communicating what's happening by doing, so the kind of things that the wash, I guess, of what's happening is, for example, the team is updating the review, we've found a new study, there aren't any new trials, we can put that information around the article, so it's not necessarily having to republish the review, and that would appear on the journal website, but it would not appear in PubMed. And then when we update the review and actually incorporate the new studies, that's the what's new scenario. So we've got some new information, the findings have changed, or we've published a new protocol. So we could do that by updating the article. We could potentially link out to another kind of commentary article, and those things would appear on the journal website, but they would also appear in PubMed. So this is sort of the thinking, I suppose, that's gone into the approach that we'll take within Cochrane, but still a lot of thinking to be done in this area.